welcome into the CHGO White Sox podcast, coming to you live from Studio A of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, the full CHGO White Sox crew. That's Vinny Duber, our CHGO White Sox beat writer. You can follow him at Vinny Duber. You can read his latest piece up at ALLCITY.com about what right field looks like and if Dominic Fletcher, if it's his job to lose or not. The man in the middle is Herb Lawrence.
Hello.
You can follow him at Eckerwall23. He's our CHGO White Sox community leader. We're being produced today by Sarah.
Hello.
Hello. And we're joined by you in the chat. Make sure you're throwing a comment. Make sure you're hitting the thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribing to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We got people in Vegas right now. Greg Braggs is talking to Patrick Mahomes. So we got all types of coverage coming from the West Loop of Chicago and I guess Vegas for the rest of the week.
You saw the big Blackhawks. Blackhawks news too on Thursday.
Right. Corey Crawford, baby.
Absolutely.
So Corey Crawford's
biggest bunch of beauties in the league.
Going to be joining Jay, Greg, and Mario on Thursday at, I think, 2:30. Yeah, 2:30 is when their show is. So make sure, checking out CHGO Sports. We got you covered if you're a Hawks, Sox, Bears, Cubs, etc.
We even had a Sky broadcast today, because Kyle Copper got traded to the Phoenix Mercury.
You got any thoughts?
I'm sad. I'm very sad that Kalia Copper is now on the hated Phoenix Mercury, and they got some picks back. I mean, the third pick overall next year's draft, where they didn't have a first-round pick. That's a good thing, but it's going to be not very watchable basketball as you've seen the championship form that they had a couple years ago. That team is pretty much all gone, except for the Shields is coming back. Diamond Shields is coming back this year.
You hate the Phoenix Mercury?
Who doesn't? I mean,
all right.
Diana Taurasi is one of the greatest players in our history, but she's dirty. So is Sophia Cunningham. I'm not a fan of that team.
Tell him, Herb. Connor also wants you to tell him to never let people forget about Frank's 12 homers in 2005. Thank you for the super chat, Connor.
Don't flame that year.
And make sure that you're putting respect on Frank's name. I can't read all the chat right now, but let's talk a little bit because Baseball Prospectus put out their PECOTA projections, and that is basically all those nerds, all those number freaks.
It's not even nerds. It's just a computer.
That's true.
It's a robot.
Isn't a computer like the true nerd though?
No, it's a robot.
They have no emotion.
Yeah.
Nerds have emotion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, very much a lot of
so this computer simulated the seasons thousands and thousands of times and got the average result of all major league results of all 162 and gave you a projected standings. Last year, they thought the White Sox would do all right. They thought the White Sox would, projected around 76.5 wins. Obviously, they won a lot less than that. But this year, a little bit of a different, vibe. In the AL Central, PECOTA, their projections have the White Sox making the playoffs. And this is direct from baseballprospectus.com/standings. 0.0% of the time in 2024.
It's hard to do.
They're just not going to do it at all.
No, I mean, it's hard to run that many simulations, supposedly. How many simulations did they run?
I don't know. Thousands. But
because in reality, there's no way that they have an actual 0% chance.
Exactly.
That's why they play the games.
And in this division specifically, where no one's running away and hiding, I don't understand that calculation. Even if you want to say the White Sox have a 0.1%, that is something. To have no percentage of chance to win the division and get into the playoffs in the AL Central seems a little far-fetched. They need to go and calculate that a little bit more.
1,000. 1,000 times wasn't good enough for you, Herb?
Let's do a little
0
bit more.
out of 1,000.
0 out of 1,000, I guess is the right way to put it.
All these guys have one of their best seasons. They're all healthy. 0%.
Their percentage chance to win the division, 0. Their percentage chance to win the wild card, 0. I can't be more clear. They have 0% chance to make the playoffs. I think
it's wrong.
Like the best scenario I saw was them winning, I think it was 87 games.
And that would definitely win the AL Central.
They have Minnesota in this simulation winning 88, and that would win the division.
How?
I think
Didn't Minnesota get
that
worse this offseason?
Well, so did the AL Central. I mean, they didn't get that much better.
I mean, no more Polanco, no more Sonny Gray, no more Kenta Maeda, Kenta Maeda.
Yeah, he's in Detroit.
Like, where did they get better at? I'm not getting it. I get that those teams are definitely better than the White Sox, and we'll talk about the Royals a little bit later. I think they're better, and I think the White Sox are in the basement of the AL Central. But to say 0%, I just gotta disagree with the 1,000 times that they went through that. And like, what are they putting into those equations? Last year's White Sox stats with only Luis Robert going off? I guess so.
I don't think they've. If we go through the 1,000 projections, if we go through all the data and code of the computer, I don't think they would have the Banny effect, ratchet it up.
Exactly.
Right? I don't think they put in that Banny effect. So, I think that 68.2 wins is probably a lot nicer of a number. I think it's probably 0.3% chance they make the playoffs. Only them, the Nationals, and the Colorado Rockies have a 0% chance to make the playoffs. Kansas City, 0.09. Or 0.9% chance to make the playoffs. So, I mean, there are some teams that seem hopeless, just like the White Sox. I mean, the Royals seem hopeless, even though we'll talk about this a little bit later on. They got some hope in Bobby Witt Jr. But, fun times in the South Side.
Yeah, I think that those Nationals and A's projection or Rockies projections make sense because they are in tougher divisions with people who are established, who are pretty great. I mean, the Rockies are not going to win because they're going to have 4 teams that are much, much better than them. And same thing with the Nationals, where 3 of the teams in that division are going to be much, much better, and I don't know what the Mets are going to do. But the White Sox, I don't see no one running and hiding. And 68 wins, while I don't think the White Sox are going to win a lot of games, I think they're over that. I think they're slightly better than that team that they're projecting them to be.
Hey, feel free to take the over 63.5.
63 and a half? Yeah. I'm hitting the button already. I've already hit it. 63 and a half?
I think that the biggest thing to come out of this little discussion was that Sean described PECOTA's projections last year as projecting the White Sox to do all right at 76 wins. That's still below 500.
Right, but like PECOTA's weird. Like,
yeah, don't they never predict anyone to be good?
Yeah. Like Seattle has a 43.5% chance to make the playoffs, but they're closer to 500 than they are above 500. They're projected to be 84.8 and 77. So, like, I mean, they have a 50% chance to make the playoffs, but they're only having 84 wins.
Let's go to the other extreme. So, who's the most likely to make the playoffs? The Dodgers?
Yes.
With like an 89% chance to win.
The Dodgers
and by this math, it should be the Twins. It sounds like
yes, the best team of all time.
So Houston has a 93.7% chance. New York has a 92.1% chance to make the playoffs. Minnesota 76.1. So Minnesota's not running away with it. Atlanta and LA are tied, 99.8% chance to make the playoffs. Dodgers projected to win 101 games. Atlanta 100.7. So. No real difference there.
It's the framing too. Like you're talking, the way you're framing these percentages are like a prediction is being made, where it's the results of the simulation. In 99% of the simulations they ran, the Dodgers made the playoffs. The point is that the data that's being loaded into the computer is all going to change once the actual season begins.
Yes. And I'm trying to find the 2023 ones to be like, well, see, they projected this team to have 0% chance, but, but I can't find it. So, anyways, a team might have been projected to, have 0% chance to make the playoffs before and have made the playoffs.
I'm sure that has been the case.
I just can't provide that information to you right now. We will talk about the information that happened on Thursday. You guys chatted a little bit about it. Bob Kendrick was on, so you guys focus mainly on chatting with Bob Kendrick. But Corbin Burnes was also traded to the Orioles. You wore your Orioles orange for the show. DL Hall and Joey Ortiz going to Milwaukee. Corbin Burnes going to Baltimore. What do we make of the trade, first of all? Obviously, we've had some time to sit with it. Kind of surprised. I was not expecting a Corbin Burnes trade to happen. I was not expecting a Dylan Cease trade to happen. I was just expecting my Thursday to end like most Thursdays end. But here we are with a blockbuster trade. And I'm still kind of shocked that a deal got done in February. I don't know. It seems a weird time for something to get done.
I think we came to the realization, or at least the thought, that this deal had to be already in the works, and they need some certainty of who was going to be the owner of the Orioles, because how quick it turned from, okay, these guys are going to be the owners of the Orioles, to like 2 days later, this trade goes down. That's what told me that, this was already in the works. And the fact that they're sent Joey Ortiz and DL Hall and a comp pick for a player with 1 year left, I thought if you're going to get Corbin Burnes, you would have to send much more than the 6th and 15th. Well, DL Hall is now graduated from being a prospect because he's been in the league, but a good pitcher and a solid middle infielder in Joey Ortiz. I thought they should got more. And so I was very disappointed with the Brewers' return, but I understand why they did it. But I think you could have got the same deal or better if you just held under Corbin Burnes until the trade deadline. If they're not offering you something that's close to what you want, I guess you just hold on to him. But the Brewers people are just like, all right, hands up, here you go. We'll take what is given to us. But some people actually like the deal that the Brewers got back because they see as Joey Ortiz as a long-term solution there for their middle infield, especially if they trade their other middle infielder.
Corbin Burnes is really, really good. And so, I think, the Orioles got a really, really good pitcher. They gave up a guy who's supposed to be an excellent defender in Ortiz, was a, top 65 prospect, I think, on the most recent list. So, nothing to sneeze at there for the Brewers, but, man, is Corbin Burnes good. And to kind of set the market like that, obviously we're talking about this because of the impact that it might have on a Dylan Cease trade, or at least maybe what we can think about in terms of a potential Dylan Cease trade. It seems to me like if the White Sox got that deal for Dylan Cease, even if Dylan Cease only had 1 year of control left, that White Sox fans would not have been happy. And I think that the Brewers are obviously in a different spot. They have kind of been the Rays of the National League for a while now. They're a team that really kind of knows what to do with or figures out how to make things work with their payroll situation and the prospects that they do have coming up through their system on a regular basis. So go ahead and think that they'll probably do well with what they got there. It's a safe assumption to make. The White Sox are maybe in a little bit of a different spot where they're really kind of shrinking everything down to go all the way back up and maybe need some bigger cornerstones in order to build around. I don't think the White Sox probably could have made a trade getting that return package and felt good about saying, all right, our future is so bright now because of that move. Also, maybe the Brewers have, a little bit more opportunity to work with. The White Sox, we've talked about it. This might be the one time that Chris Getz can really infuse the organization with that talent by making a big kind of trade. The Brewers maybe have a different outlook on where they are at the moment. So I think the White Sox probably would not have been super well served had that been the return package. Nothing against Joey Ortiz, who sounds like a very good defensive shortstop, but I think the White Sox are probably looking for bigger things, and I think the idea is that they might be able to get those bigger things once the desperation kind of jacks up around the trade deadline.
Right. Again, like Joey Ortiz clocked in at 63 on MLB's top prospects. I think they also had 5 prospects in the top 30. Yeah. So, not the biggest fish in the Orioles prospect there. Ortiz would have been a fine player, but again, especially with Burnes only having 1 year and costing, I think, double what Cease costs right now. I think he's near $15 or $16 million. Mm-hmm. It just made no sense if the White Sox, as Bob Nightingale reported, Orioles offered the same package for Dylan Cease that they offered for Corbin Burnes plus one player. Even if it was plus one player, I'd be pretty pissed right now at Chris Getz. And I feel like he would have really soured his opportunity to make the most of this one chance in Dylan Cease. So
if that player is Cowser or Kjerstad, you're still pissed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
I don't
think top 65 prospect.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was.
I don't think it was either. But if it was, that's exactly the framework that I worked out with Connor Newcomb of Locked On Orioles to have the trade. And
aren't you also the same guy that like 1 week we were saying like wouldn't you be disappointed if it was just 2 top 60 prospects? And that's just only 2 top 60 prospects.
No, but then
Cowser and Ortiz are like,
and you get the DL Hall and you get the comp pick too. So I think that is a lot for what Dylan Cease brings to the table, and I think that's a right fielder for the future, power hitting right fielder. Either you got Cowser or Kjerstad. Yeah, I would have been really fine with that deal.
I don't know. I think the rumors we heard were 3 top prospects. So would you feel that Hall kind of reaches that third because he's not really a prospect?
Yeah, I don't know his last year if he was a top 100 prospect. I believe he was before he got in the rotation in 2022 or 23. But yeah, that's kind of a prospect, and he has starter experience. So yeah, I would have been in for those type of people bringing back that Hall that Dylan Cease would have got us.
For Baseball America, pre-2019, DL Hall was 54, pre-2020, 47, pre-2021, 59, pre-2022, 52, pre-23, 75, and then obviously isn't on the list as you brought up before. But in 19 innings last year, 3.26 ERA at the major league level. So, if it was Cowser or Kjerstad, I could probably talk myself into it. But again, we're 4 days out. Like if we're 4 days out from the trade, I'm just now reacting to acquiring Kjerstad. Knee-jerk reaction. I don't love it. But yeah, I think that the White Sox clearly, again, it's less about the even skill of these pitchers because Burnes is the better pitcher. You can just look at his finishes at Cy Young. You can just see that his control, when he is fully on, his control is elite, and just Dylan doesn't have that. But what are you really looking for in a pitcher? Like Corbin Burnes, the difference between Corbin Burnes and Dylan Cease, like, do you need that to become the World Series champion? Like, you just need a really solid pitcher next to Bradish. And Burnes and Cease are still top tier pitchers, right? Like,
but
I don't.
But there's no doubt that Corbin Burnes is an ace. That's 100%, right? Are we in agreement right there? That Corbin Burnes is an ace.
Yes.
Dylan Cease, there's a question mark there. He could be an ace.
How many aces are there, though?
Very handful.
Is he one of the 30 best pitchers in baseball?
There's 4, not 30.
Who is
in a deck?
Yeah.
Is Dylan Cease one of the 30 best pitchers in baseball? Yeah, 100%.
Well, there you go. He'd be an ace.
I don't say you have one ace per team. I think aces should be, this is the elite pitcher, and he belongs at the top of your rotation. Now, Dylan Cease goes to Baltimore with that staff, except for Corbin Burnes. He's at the top of the rotation, but are they feeling better about themselves at battling the Yankees, at battling the Boston Red Sox? Yes, but not as good as they feel for the 1 year they're getting Corbin Burnes. So I think it was a great move by the Baltimore Orioles to get the better pitcher, even though it's only 1 more year, and not give up a lot. They can still, theoretically, get Dylan Cease still, because they have a bunch of their players left over, and, the price is the price. And if it was only Ortiz, Hall, and another player, that other player could be added on if it was Cowser or Kjerstad, and then sprinkle in one or two more of those top 100 players, and I think you can get the deal done. So, yes, I think that they did the right thing by them, and I don't blame Chris Getz for balking and saying, hey, man, I'm just going to hold on to this and see what you guys are doing later on.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for both teams. Does this rule out a offseason trade then for Dylan Cease? Because it did seem like the Orioles were the team to acquire Dylan Cease. I don't really think anyone has the ammo that the Orioles have still, even getting rid of Ortiz and Hall. Like, I think if there was a favorite to acquire Cease, it is still the Orioles, just because of all of the gluttony that they have when it comes to prospects.
The Orioles can do this again in the offseason. Because they're going to lose.
Offseason?
Yeah, they're going to lose
Burnes.
They're going to lose Corbin Burnes. And they're like, we're just renting pitchers now. And if Dylan Cease pitches like the ace in 2022 showed up, then they can say, okay, yeah, we'll do the same similar-ish deal that we did with you. And the price is going to go down for Chris Getz because you lost a full year of controllability.
Yeah, but they could trade him before the trade deadline.
They could.
You don't think they will?
I think the White Sox are going to do everything they can to get Dylan Cease off of their team and get some assets for his services. Not because they don't like the player, just because they know the player is going to go to free agency.
I said this on Friday. I don't really think this changes much of anything for Dylan Cease. I think the more important factor or impact, if you want to call it that, everything we heard before this trade, which was the teams think the White Sox asking price is too high. Teams think, that it's maybe better off to revisit this in the season, that the White Sox are going to hang on to him, that the White Sox aren't going to budge off their asking price. All of that speaks more to what the White Sox are going to do with Dylan Cease than Corbin Burnes getting traded to the Orioles. Obviously, the Orioles are less desperate for a top-of-the-rotation pitcher than they were a week ago, but like we've been talking about with the Dodgers, say, what's to prevent the Orioles from going out and trading for Dylan Cease? Certainly it's not bringing on a bunch of money because he only makes $8 million a year, only being relative to baseball, of course. But, we talk about it with the Dodgers. Oh, they could go out and add him. Why not? Because it's not this giant outlay for the payroll that they've made with certain other players. The Orioles still have, as you mentioned, a ton of prospects that the White Sox were probably still interested in a week ago. They probably still have all those guys. So that conversation can come around again. I think, though, you've got to look at, it's not just, and certainly everybody's been painting this picture because it makes sense, but it's not like the Orioles are the only team the White Sox can trade him to, nor is it the Orioles are the only team that they can trade him to and get what they need to get. Yes, they're the team that has the most top prospects, so if you're looking for multiple top prospects, it would make sense that you would look in that direction. I'm sure the White Sox would be happy to receive multiple top prospects from the Orioles in a hypothetical trade. But fans have been so focused on Baltimore that they forget that there's 20-something other teams out there that are trying to compete for a playoff spot this year and that might want a top-of-the-rotation pitcher, if not now, by the time July rolls around. You're over there making faces, Sean, like you're talking about, man, if they trade with somebody other than the Orioles, it's going to be a bad move. Well, then you're pigeonholing yourself into crossing your fingers and saying, well, hopefully someone on the Orioles gets hurt because it's the only way that the White Sox are going to make this deal. I think the White Sox are going to make the deal that is best for them. The Orioles obviously didn't want to make that trade for Dylan Cease. Some other team, be it between now and July, or the end of July rather, might come along and say, we're going to meet that price.
And I think too, Sean, that when I said initially that they were holding on to this deal, I think that plays into the market for Dylan Cease, knowing that they already had a deal in place with Corbin Burnes and the Brewers. They can look at the White Sox deal and say, hey, you guys got to do better than that. We're not offering you that much money. Take it or leave it. And knowing that they have the Corbin Burnes deal, and I'm sure they would want more years and the Dylan Cease certainty of 2 years instead of the 1 year of Corbin Burnes, even though Corbin Burnes is a better pitcher. But they knowing that they already had that deal worked out where it's really not giving up a lot, they can tell the White Sox, go scratch. It's like, you guys are asking for way too much because we already know the market, and the market is these players because we're going to get Corbin Burnes right now.
Right. I mean, again, the reason why their value is different is just because of the length of control. But, can they get a top 30 prospect? I don't know if that's going to change. I don't think it's a bad move from Getz if they trade with a team not the Orioles, just to be clear. I just think that that's the team that he would prefer to trade with because of their gluttony. And, again, it seems like they're not willing to give up a top 30 prospect. And you look at the top 30 prospects that are, at MLB.com, not a lot of teams that have a top 30 prospect are in the trade market, right? Paul Skeens is up there. Well, Pittsburgh's not that good. Dylan Cruz is up there. Well, Washington's not that good. Same with James Wood, who's at 13.
Yeah.
The Padres are littered up there as well. The Padres just aren't in a place to go acquire Dylan Cease. The Rangers don't seem willing to part with any of their top bats in Evan Carter or Wyatt Langford. Why would they be either? But still, it doesn't seem like anyone besides the Orioles guys are really kind of, loose, I guess, to pry through. And even then, it doesn't even seem like they're even able to be pried loose.
I mean, I've brought this up multiple times. If I'm the Orioles, I would want all those guys to be on my team. And you look at, they might be going through a little bit of a transition. Yeah, they got some guys who have been performing really well at the major league level last year, helped them win all those games, but maybe those guys aren't long for their roster. I'm talking about Santander, Mullins, these guys that have been around for a while. Wouldn't they want to plug in guys who are going to be there for the next 8 years? That would seem to be, there's this idea maybe out among some folks that why wouldn't you trade those guys that you're not even using? You need Dylan Cease right now. I think those guys, I think the Orioles probably want to be a team that is competing for an AL East title for years to come. Those prospects in the top 30 are the ones that are going to do that for them.
Right. And two, I mean, if I'm just going back to when the White Sox were in this position and, they had Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert in the top 30, I don't know if I'd be willing to get rid of one of those guys for, I don't know who Corbin Burnes would have been in 2019.
I mean,
Justin Verlander.
Yeah, and they had a chance. Well, Cubs had a chance to get him. But, yeah, I think they're in a different situation because of the division they're in and having to strike while the iron's hot right now. And so they have a bunch of players that are not going anywhere that are blocked by the team. Like Joey Ortiz had to go off of this team.
Have to strike while the iron's hot? Because, you look at the Yankees, and, yes, they have Aaron Judge and they have Juan Soto, but there's no guarantee that they'll have Juan Soto next year. And they're chained to that Giancarlo Stanton contract.
But the Yankees.
Right, but the Yankees haven't been that great.
They're going to go and get another guy. They're eventually going to get another guy. They'll use that Jason Dominguez in that trade, or he'll come up and contribute for the team. But they can look no further than the White Sox and their short window that closed quickly. Hey, we're good this year. No promises that we're going to be good next year. Yeah, we have good young players, but we can have a sophomore slump from some of these players out here. Our players could be thinking about other things. Injuries could happen to our players. There's a lot of things out there that can be detrimental to the Orioles winning the AL East and then also competing in the World Series.
Let's take a break. We'll let you know about ComEd and our friends CIRCA Sportsbook. But I do also want to get to Kevin's Super Chat. Thank you, Kevin, for your $10 Super Chat. He says, this is the worst time to retool. Every team in the Central is desperately trying to take, except the Royals. Keep Cease, spend the cash, take the Central, and never give it back. I mean, sounds nice.
It sounds really nice.
I wouldn't hate. I mean, it sounds
pretty easy too.
Sounds a lot better than 0% chance to make the playoffs.
And as we started this offseason, I remember lamenting trying to be like the Royals. Now this offseason's winding down. I'm like, let's try to be like the Royals. Michael Wacha, man, this long ass extension to Witt Jr. Also Seth Lugo, Will Smith. They got a nice team that I would love to be playing on the South Side. But we're doing ComEd, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It is getting easier for businesses to switch to electric vehicles. That's something we can all get behind for the health of the planet and the well-being of all of us who share it.
Yeah. The electric grid is evolving to meet your cleaner energy needs as we all move with confidence toward an electric tomorrow. Whether you have one delivery van or a whole fleet of shipping trucks, ComEd can help guide you to make the changes that make sense.
So what should business owners do?
Go to ComEd.com/clean to learn more about the resources, fleet rebates, and infrastructure incentives available to help businesses go electric. If you own a business, don't wait. Start making your plan today to switch to electric vehicles. Good for business, good for the planet, good for all of us. Go to ComEd.com/clean.
Did you say ComEd.com/clean?
Yeah. Go now and see how going electric connects us to a better way of doing business and a better future for generations to come.
Oh, my reader just asked questions.
Yeah, no,
it has no information.
I think you did a great job, guys. I want to let you know about our friends over at CIRCA Sportsbook. If you are looking to bet the big game, there is no better place to bet than with our friends over at CIRCA Sportsbook. Right now, they do have the best lines available in Illinois to bet on the Niners money line. So if you are looking to take the Niners on Sunday, you can go over to CIRCA Sportsbook at -124 and lay that with the Niners to win. This is a donation?
Donation.
To take the higher-rated power team?
Donation. Don't ever bet against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
Ever.
All right. Well,
ever.
This is just a read, not gambling advice. But you could also go look if you are going to be betting against the Chiefs or you want to go side with the Chiefs. Right now they got 1.5, either +1.5 for the Chiefs or -1.5 for the Niners. But the best part about CIRCA is they'll always have tight money line splits. Games will strive to be a -110 split on the CIRCA Sports menu, unlike other sports books, which may use a -115 or -120 split. And CIRCA does not limit players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books who do limit winning players. They encourage bettors to download and explore all sports betting apps available and to compare the lines from each sports book available so you are getting the best price possible. And most of the time, if not all the time, you'll find that the world's largest sports book, CIRCA Sportsbook, has the best line to bet on. And there are real people behind the CIRCA Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike other books who use chatbots. All aspects of the app are being run by the same team that runs the main CIRCA Sportsbook at CIRCA Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. So download the CIRCA Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app. That's circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also be on the lookout for CIRCA events, watch parties, and tailgates. If you or somebody you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537. Text GMB to 833-234 or visit areyourreallywinning.com. Also want to thank our new diehards. Today we had Keith, John with an H, George Bliss, and Jay sign up. So thank you very much. And I think we also forgot to do Monday, where M. Fish, Rodney, Jamie, Carrie, Raul, Zach, Donald, Gordon, Rich, and Jeremy all joined. So thank you, everyone, for leveling up your fandom and becoming a diehard. You could check that out at allchgo.com, and you could read all of our writers' certain locked pieces. I know that Will Gottlieb just graded, I think they're 50 games through the season for the Bulls. So he gave us like midway through mid-season report cards. So you can go check that out, allchgo.com. All right, so let's go into the Royals here. They just signed an extension with Bobby Witt, 11 years, $288 million. Now the White Sox and the Oakland A's are the only team to never go over the $100 million mark when it comes to extending a player, signing a free agent, etc. Herb, How does that make you feel?
A little mad that the White Sox haven't done that as yet. It isn't from a lack of trying. Of course, the Manny Machado saga, the Wheeler saga, and other players, they have offered those deals. It's up to the other player to take the deal. But I would like, to salute the Royals. Like, this is a genius move, absolute genius move. After 2 years of playing baseball, Bobby Witt Jr. is a superstar. You could tell his projection is going through the roof. 23 years old. I think he's going to be 24 this year. And so for the Royals to do this, which I look at as, I know it's an 11-year deal for 288. I look at it as a 7-year deal for 148 because that's his first opt-out. He gets 7, 8, 9, and 10 opt-outs. Theoretically, if you're a good player and he'll be 30 at that end of that year, you're going to opt out. And you're going to either give the Kansas City Royals a chance to re-sign you or some other 29 teams. He's a Royal, so maybe he'll be available for the White Sox at that time. But it's $21 million annual value for Bobby Witt Jr. to play either decent shortstop or third base, which I think he's eventually going to downshift to because he's made a lot of errors last year as a shortstop. So I think that's eventually in his future. But he hit like 30 home runs, almost stole 50 bags. I think he's a 40-40 guy coming up, and he's the leader. I think that also when you're a Kansas City Royal fan, you're like, yes, finally, we've planted our flag on somebody. This is our guy for the future. Him, the Pat Squash, we're going to be going, and Melendez, we're going to be going to the future with these young core players that are taken care of. He can just plant his flag in Kansas City for the next 7 years and say, this is where I'm at. This is where my feet are going to be at. And now, free agents, if you want to come to Kansas City, we're going to be having a new stadium. And I think this deal is also part of the new stadium. I think, as Luke is pointing out, you have a player like Bobby Witt Jr., and he's signed. It's easier to go to legislation and say, hey, man, we're signed with a superstar. Our team is coming up. Can you give us some tax breaks? Can you give us something on the stadium? And that's a little bit more easy to swallow. Taxpayers in Kansas City area will be easier to swallow if you have a person now that it's going to be there forever. And so it's a great move for them. And I hope the White Sox, who are trying to emulate the Royals, look at that and say, okay, next time we get a superstar that is not Scott Boras affiliated, we'll try to sign them to a long-term deal, because this is I don't even know if this has been done, especially with the opt-outs in their deal for the player. It's an innovative deal that makes the player happy, and I'm glad he signed in it, but I wish our White Sox were a little bit better and take some cues from this team and make sure that they don't fall too far behind from the Kansas City Royals, because I think their payrolls are similar right now, but the Royals have, of course, more young talent coming up.
Well, I mean, I don't think you should be too harsh on the White Sox for not doing that kind of thing. They did do that kind of thing, if you'll remember, a few years back with the deals for Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert, and Yoan Moncada, who obviously, of the three, had actually played Major League Baseball when he got those extension. And the idea at the time was, holy mackerel, look at that. They've got a middle of a batting order for the next many years. Obviously, it didn't work out in their favor because those three players, or at least two of them specifically, yet to live up to that contract. Certainly Luis Robert Jr. had an amazing year last year. What you're focused on, obviously, is the number, and certainly that is alarming because it's not just that the White Sox are among the teams that haven't done a contract that size. They are almost the only team that haven't done a contract that size, which speaks to their approach at whether it's free agency or extension in the modern world of baseball and how that works right now. Not to say they won't do it again they won't try it again if they have the opportunity, but right now they're not really in that position to be doing that kind of thing. It's great for Kansas City and the fans down there in Kansas City who are great baseball fans. Gives them a reason to go to the ballpark for the next, more than half of a decade. And really, listen, they don't forget that. They don't forget that they won the World Series, less than, what was that, 9 years ago now. They remembered how they won that World Series, right? With homegrown talent that had been there for a while, the Gordons, the Moustakas, the Hosmers of the world, and more. And maybe they say, okay, this is the start of the next wave. This is the start of trying to get that done again. Obviously, it's a little tricky when you're the Kansas City Royals, when your market is that size, and when historically you haven't paid free agents to come in and supplement those kind of guys as well. But it's nothing but good things for the folks down in Kansas City. As the White Sox compare, they're in a different position right now, and they are obviously doing things with their payroll that are going in the opposite direction from what we've seen this offseason. I think that they deserve credit for trying to do that kind of thing years ago when they did with Robert and Moncada and Jimenez, but when it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and I'm not wishing anything but the best for Bobby Witt Jr., who has been a phenomenal player to watch in just 2 years, but it's possible that path goes a different way than is expected as well. So it's a tough thing for the White Sox, I guess, because it means that one of the better players in baseball is going to be in their division, competing against them for the next few years. But at the end of the day, they have the ability to make a similar kind of investment. They just need that player to come along. Is Colson Montgomery that kind of player? We'll see.
I don't know if it's going to be Colson. It's an interesting question. I think, if anything, the guy that you extend is still on the roster, and it's Robert. I don't know what he hasn't done to get that look or get that opportunity.
He's Scott Boras.
Well, usually that guy gets big contracts, so I think he'll probably deliver. I don't think the White Sox should be. I think the reason why fans are so frustrated is because you look at the MLB, you look at the structure of contracts, there is no salary cap. The only reason why they haven't gone over that number is because of seemingly self-restrictions. And, you obviously bring up the Machado thing, but it also felt like Jerry Reinsdorf didn't want to go to that $300 million mark. No. So the White Sox didn't go there, and they didn't get Manny Machado.
I don't even know if they offered Bryce Harper a deal. They had a meeting with him.
Yeah, I don't think he did. But I think the biggest frustration is, again, it's all self-imposed. We know that Jerry Reinsdorf obviously has the money, the net worth, etc. There's obviously been a ton of opportunities to do so, and he just has never capitalized. And that's what's most frustrating, is not that there hasn't been talent to offer it to, or not that there hasn't been the money to have, not that there hasn't been a new stadium in Jerry Reinsdorf's, jurisdiction. I mean, he's 1990.
Just think about the equivalent show here in Kansas City, where they're going wild today and yesterday. It's not a lot. It's not a huge commitment either. Like I said, it's only $21 million annual average value for Bobby Witt Jr.'s first 7 years. It's a drop in the bucket. Imagine if the White Sox would do something with like Luis Robert and just give him a bunch of money until he's 36 years old. Whatever. White Sox fans would be like, yes, Jerry, That's what you got to do. That's the type of stuff. Like, I know that he's a Scott Boras client, and that doesn't usually end in an extension, but do it. Ask. You don't know until you ask. Here's the number we think that you are at, Luis Robert. We're going to eat up a couple of your free agent years. We're going to rip up those last couple of years of the options that we have, and here's your money. Stay with us. Build something with us.
Yeah.
And then everybody would be like, okay, the White Sox are serious about winning, and they have Luis Robert extended for now 9 years instead of 4 years and not looking to trade him. That's the stuff that fans are looking at and saying, that's a commitment to us, that's a commitment to the player, and that's a commitment to winning. We're already thinking about, when are they going to trade Luis Robert Jr.? We just spit the first segment. Or when are they going to trade Dylan Cease? These are sad things for White Sox fans.
But Herb, they gave that contract to Luis Robert already.
Yeah, before he played, though. Those are different things. Like, before you play a game, they're just eating up ARB years in the first couple years of free agency. I want you stay on our team forever, 11-year deal, not the deal they did because they didn't know what type of players they were going to be, because they rolled the dice. They come up with 7s with Luis Robert, and they came up with snake eyes on Eloy Jimenez so far. So, yes, those are innovative, good deals, but I want more. Like, now you know that Luis Robert is an actual superstar. There's no reason not to go to him and say, this is the deal. This is what we think you're going to make in free agency. We're buying out those years. We want you to be here at the White Sox. Let's set stakes, had some stakes set in the ground for you here at the White Sox. Same thing with Dylan Cease. You don't have to lose him. Yes, more likely than not, he's going to go to free agency. But if you offer him something that he wasn't expecting, I think he will think about it twice and say, hey, Scott, this deal is more than fair. I'm in. I'm staying here with the White Sox.
I didn't know if you had anything. Okay. I mean, they end up buying out one of the pre-arb years and then 3 arbitration years, and then I'm assuming he would have been a free agent when he was 28.
It was an 8-year contract.
What was? No, I'm saying
Robert.
Bobby Witt.
Oh, Bobby Witt.
Yeah.
After
arb years, do you become a free agent? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they bought out 3 years of arb. I get your point, but also I don't see the real reason to rip up a already signed extension. Maybe again, if you are turning it from 4 to 9, sure. I think the coolest thing is just exactly how you talked about the way that this is just laid out and all of the options for Witt, because it really does feel like he took a little bit of a hometown discount, but also they did him a solid.
Yes.
I mean, now for 7 years, he's got a guaranteed $140 million. Yeah. He doesn't have to worry about that. And as you said, he's going to hit the free agent market when he's the old age of 31. So I think that it's a...
Or he doesn't have to, right?
Yeah, or he could just
say,
keep
I'm
making
in.
$35 million.
Yeah, I was like, I'm in for next year.
Right.
And
just make that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You've been talking about this as an 11. Aren't there 3 options
After
on the
that,
end of it
yeah.
too?
Yeah. To
like,
make it 300.
This can be like an almost $400 million contract,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 7 for 140, and then he can opt out at 31. If not, he'll opt in and make $35 million. Then the next year in 2032, when he's 32, he has another opt out where he can choose to make 35 or hit free agency. In 2033, he'll be 33 again, has that option to make 35 or hit free agency, and then has one final opt out in 2034 when he's 34 to make $35 million or hit free agency. And then there's 3 club options to either pick him up for 33, 28, and 28, which is cool.
And he has a full no trade clause too.
Oh, boom. There you go.
So, like, he controls this whole scenario. It was a great move on the Royals' part. Excellent move for himself. Put some money in his pocket. He didn't necessarily need it. He gave him some money. But it's a good deal for them. Everybody involved except for the White Sox.
I also got to just push back. I know that he's a Royal, but this is kind of like the whole TA thing. Like, TA was so quick. He was so rangy that he got to balls that maybe other people don't, and then they get counted as errors. Bobby Witt last year had a range that was in the 100th percentile, 98th percentile. He had a 14 range outs above average. His sprint speed was 30.5. His arm strength 75 percentile. He's staying at shortstop. Relax on that.
He's going to third base.
No, he's not.
He makes way too many errors.
He's not. Hey, maybe he'll go to third base when he's 31 and he can make it $35 million, but no, he's staying at shortstop for at least the next 5 years. The reason why you go out and pay that guy is because he is a shortstop.
And he has the versatility to move. if he keeps on making errors
crazy.
at the league high, then he'll be moved. You know the Royals got a middle infielder.
That is a basic ass take from you.
Hey, man.
Just because you saw the bold 14 or whatever on his baseball reference. You think Bobby Witt's a bad fielder?
I don't think he's a bad fielder. I just think he makes a lot of errors. Difference.
Okay. Anyways, I think that it would be obviously exciting for the town to have a Luis Robert similar extension. I think that he would be the guy that makes the most sense. You brought up Colson. Do we think that they change their ways because of Colson Montgomery? Like, what have the White Sox learned from 2016 to 2023 in terms of team building? And do you think that Colson Montgomery is going to be getting offers for 8 years extensions before he's called up to Major League Baseball, similar to the Colt Keith deal that we just saw with the Detroit Tigers?
I think Colson Montgomery would have to have a fantastic year at AAA this year in order to get any contract before he plays, right? To get the Robert contract, to get the Eloy contract, right? But I think that they're right there in just describing that those have existed. You see the White Sox have a history and willing to do that kind of deal, right? Now, at what price? Sure. But I think that if Colson Montgomery delivers on being a top 10 prospect in 2024, and for whatever reason, and even if he does, I guess really reach the major leagues, right? Even with a handful of games, you could see that kind of extension being made next offseason or next spring. Why not? I don't see why the White Sox wouldn't do something like that if he proves he deserves to be looked at as the cornerstone that we're currently talking about him as.
Do you think he gets an extension offer?
I don't think so. I don't think the White Sox are going to do that again. As I just pointed out, they came up aces with another one, and the other one is kind of still out there, and they don't know if it's going to work out. And then the PECOTA one, when he's actually played, has turned out to be a bad contract for them. So I don't think they're going to be too quick to do that, even though this regime didn't do those deals. I think they've learned their lesson. They're like, okay, we'll let them play a couple years and see what they're doing, and maybe after 2 years, Colson Montgomery get the same treatment as Bobby Witt Jr. Hopefully. That'll be awesome if he gets an 11-year deal for $288 million.
If Vinny's voting for Colson Montgomery for fourth and MVP, I sure hope so, for sure. Did you vote him fourth? What was it, fifth?
Witt?
Yeah.
Yeah, fourth sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he was pretty damn good.
Yeah, fourth or fifth, yeah.
I think he finished like seventh in this year's voting. So, yeah, it's well worth it. And I think
he finished it.
The 40-40 is not hard to do at all for him. He just needs to be a little bit more refined in stealing bases. I think he led the league in getting caught. Stolen bases like 15, but he almost stole 50. So I'll, grain of salt. You'll take that, getting caught 15 times because he's.
You're not gonna tell him to not steal as much because he's getting caught stealing. Hey, don't go and try to field those balls. You might make an error.
No, I don't like him sliding head first. I don't like any player sliding head first. You're putting your hands at risk.
Sliding head first? What?
I don't like sliding head first. You put your hands at risk.
You're talking about getting caught stealing?
No. Anytime you just slide with your feet, it works better. Your hands are the most important thing to you as a baseball player.
Okay.
Are they not?
I don't remember bringing up hands. I don't know where this came from.
We're talking about sliding. We're talking about.
No, I was saying caught stealing. I said, are you going to tell him to not steal?
He was making fun of you for the errors comment.
Yes,
earlier. Yeah.
I understand that, but I said no. I would not want him to slide head first if we're talking about not having him steal.
Yeah, I don't know what you meant by the stealing thing. I don't. Well, anyways, we're gonna end the show. That's Herb Lawrence. I love him very much. You can follow him at HectorWall23. He's our CHGO White Sox community leader, and he also loves making sure that you spell re-signing with a dash.
They literally mean the
resigning.
two different things.
That's Vinny Duber. You can read his latest piece at allchgo.com. There it is on the screen. You can check him out at Vinny Duber as well on Twitter. Thank you to Sarah for producing the show. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button, and we'll be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.